I found the credit card statement folded into thirds and shoved down into the pocket of Jenna's blue wool coat. That coat had hung in our front hall closet all winter. March in Ohio meant you still needed it in the mornings, but that afternoon the sun finally had some weight to it, so I was putting the heavy stuff away and pulling out the lighter jackets. I shook the sleeves once, checked the pockets for gloves or chapstick, and felt paper instead. It didn't crinkle like a grocery receipt. It had that thick official weight, bank weight. I slid it out, more curious than anything, and saw the logo first. Not our bank. Not the one our joint cards came from. A national issuer I recognized from commercials, metal cards, airport lounges, pretty people clinking glasses. My name wasn't on it. Jenna's was. The balance in bold at the top right said 20,437.19. For a second I honestly thought it had to be some kind of offer, pre-approved up to $20,000, something like that. I blinked, read the line again, previous balance, purchases, interest, minimum due. Due date was 2 days ago. My stomach didn't drop. There was no dramatic rush of blood to my ears. It was more like something slid quietly out of alignment in the room. The hallway light hummed. The house felt still in a way it hadn't a second before. I flipped through the pages. There were two, front and back. Transaction list like a diary she hadn't meant anyone to read. Boutique clothing stores I'd heard her mention in passing. A spa downtown. A salon that charged more for a color than I paid for a set of tires. An image consulting firm. Flights. A hotel in Chicago I didn't recognize. Restaurant tabs that looked like group dinners or nights out she'd labeled girls' nights. And at the bottom, in smaller, cheery type, you're only required to pay $612 this month. I remembered the way she'd said it 2 weeks earlier, standing in our kitchen with a new leather tote on her arm. Oh, this was on sale, practically free. At the time, I'd half smiled, half worried, and let it go. That had been my role for a while. Half smile, half worry, keep the boat steady. I sat down on the small bench by the door and laid the statement flat on my lap. This card wasn't one of the ones I knew about. It wasn't tied to our joint checking where the mortgage and utilities went. We agreed more than once that we didn't carry balances. We used cards for points, paid them off every month. That was one of my non-negotiables before we got married. I run projections for a living. I'm a financial analyst for a mid-sized manufacturing company. I make my charts, build my models, watch numbers for a living. I'd spent a decade carefully maxing out my 401k, funding a Roth IRA, paying extra on the mortgage. I know exactly what $20,000 does or doesn't do over time. At 6% annual return over 20 years, that investment in her image, as I would hear it called later, was a new car. 2 years of basic living expenses. The difference between retiring at 60 and retiring at 62. I traced the due date with my thumb. Then I looked up at our front door. Jenna was at a client lunch, at least according to the text she'd sent earlier. She worked in marketing for a local real estate group, events, Instagram, glossy brochures, that kind of thing. Her world was image. Mine was spreadsheets. It had always been some version of that dynamic between us. I had even liked it at first. We balanced each other. I kept her from saying yes to every shiny impulse. She pulled me out of my Excel sheets and into actual restaurants. When we met, she used to joke that I carried a calculator in my pocket the way other guys carried a pocket knife. I carried my phone, which had 4 different budget apps and my investment portfolio logged in. I thought it was funny. A lot of our early jokes about money aged poorly. I took out my phone, snapped photos of each page of the statement, front and back. Habit more than anything. Documentation. I set the actual paper back into the coat pocket, exactly how I'd found it, and hung the coat in the hall closet again like nothing had changed. Then I went to my desk in the small office off the living room, woke my computer up, and pulled my own credit report. I'd done it 6 months ago out of routine. Everything had been normal then. 2 joint credit cards, 1 store card we almost never used, the mortgage. Nothing with this bank. The new report loaded. There it was. New revolving account in Jenna's name, opened 10 months ago. Limit, $20,000. Current balance, $20,437. Over the limit. She hadn't added me as an authorized user. I wasn't on the hook contractually, not directly. But that balance was sitting in the same house as my retirement plans, my emergency fund, my idea of what our 60s would look like. We just had a conversation 3 nights ago about me running the numbers to see if I could move down to 4 days a week in a few years. More time, slightly less income. I talked about compound interest and withdrawal rates. She said, "Babe, you stress out so much. We're fine. You make good money. Live a little." I had nodded and tried to explain that fine now didn't mean fine forever. Now I had a piece of paper in my lap that was a physical manifestation of the gap between our definitions. People like to ask when you knew it was over. It wasn't that minute, sitting at my desk with Experian open and my heart weirdly quiet. But looking back, that's when the line appeared. I wouldn't step over it for another couple of months. I'd try everything else first. Budget meetings, boundaries, patience. But that was when the map changed. The first sign had been smaller. 6 months earlier, a Saturday morning in September, we'd been getting ready for a barbecue at our friend's place. Ray and his wife, Tasha, lived on the next cul-de-sac over. Ray and I had met in a financial literacy course at church in our 20s before either of us were married. He stayed the course, sensible sedan, 529 plans for his kids, the whole package. Jenna came out of the bedroom in a new dress I hadn't seen before. It was a deep green wrap thing that clung in all the places wrap things are designed to cling. She looked good. She knew it. "New?" I asked, rinsing out the coffee pot. She did a little spin. "Got it on sale, 50% off actually, practically stole it." I laughed. "From where?" She said the name of a boutique downtown that sells to women who use summering as a verb. 50% off what? I asked out of habit. She rolled her eyes. "You ruin everything, just say I look nice." "You do look nice," I said and kissed her cheek. "I'm just curious about the math." She didn't answer, which was an answer. At the barbecue, she made 3 jokes about me being frugal. One about me having a spreadsheet for our grocery list. One about me tracking electricity usage. One about how I knew the price of eggs every week. "They'd be out here with a Tesla if it wasn't for Lucas and his retirement fantasies," she told Tasha, laughing as she refilled her wine. "Retirement fantasies are called not having to eat cat food at 70, I said lightly. The table laughed. It landed better with them than with her. On the way home, she turned in the passenger seat to look at me, one elbow on the window. "You make me sound like some kind of gold digger," she said. "I said I don't want to eat cat food," I replied. "We were talking about my fantasies, remember?" "You know what I mean. You think I don't hear the tone. You act like I'm irresponsible because I don't want to live like a grad student for the rest of my life." We lived in a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and a finished basement. We had granite countertops and a fenced yard. My Honda was 6 years old, yes, but well maintained. Her SUV was leased and 2 years old. If this was grad student, it was PhD at a private university with rich parents. "We live well," I said evenly. "I just don't want debt hanging over us while we do it. There's a difference." She crossed her arms. "It always comes back to debt with you. You know, not everyone wants to obsess over numbers all day." "Not everyone has to," I said. "That's why I do it." She stared out the window. "It's boring." "Boring is good when you're talking about money," I said. "Exciting means car repossession and collection calls." She snorted, "Drama king." We let the music fill the silence for a bit. That had been the pattern since we got serious. I brought up budgets, she called me controlling or boring. We moved on. The difference was, until recently, her spending had lived within the boundaries of our actual income. We had a system, joint checking for bills, a joint credit card we paid off monthly, individual fun money accounts for whatever we wanted without comments. Hers went mostly to clothes, nails, hair, decor. Mine went to gadgets and the occasional splurge meal. When we first sat down with Ray and went through that church course, Jenna had been on board. "We're going to be so responsible," she'd said. "I love responsible men." I'd paid off the last of her student loans 2 years into our marriage. We cut up a store credit card she'd carried a small balance on. We were a team, or so I thought. But then Ray and Tasha upgraded their kitchen. Our other friends moved into bigger houses, bought new cars, went on vacations that showed up in filtered squares on Jenna's phone. She'd scroll and sigh. "I just don't want to be left behind," she told me once, sitting at the island with her glass of wine. "My friends, they're leveling up. Their husbands aren't making them feel guilty about it." "Your husband is making sure you're not panicking at 60, I said. "That's my role." "I'll be dead by 60, she said, half joking. "We should enjoy it now." She was 36 then. I was 40. I had no intention of being dead by 60. We had that conversation in January. The card in her coat pocket had been opened in March. She must have applied right around the time we argued about a trip. It was another couple's thing. Cabo, all-inclusive, group rate. Our share would have been about $4,000 when you added everything up. She sent me the link one afternoon while I was at work. "We are going," the text said, all caps, 10 exclamation points. I replied, "Looks amazing. Let's talk tonight. Want to see where we're at with everything this quarter." She answered with an eye-roll emoji, "And you're killing my vibe." That night I opened my laptop at the dining table and showed her the budget. I didn't do theatrics, I just laid it out. Mortgage, utilities, food, insurance, retirement contributions, sinking funds for car repairs and home maintenance. "We can do it," I said finally. "If we push off extra payments on the mortgage for a few months and trim discretionary for a while, but I'd rather plan it for next year and save specifically. That way we're not squeezing everything else." "So we can't go," she said flatly. "We can," I repeated, "but it would mean pushing off other goals. I don't love that trade-off." "You hate everything fun," she said. "That's not true," I said. "I just think about future us as much as current us. They don't have a voice in this, so I try to speak for them." She snorted. "Future us will be fine, you worry too much. We'll be the only ones not going." "We went to Charleston last year," I pointed out. "We're not exactly living some monk life." "This is different," she said. "This is the crew, this is memories." "This is $4,000, I said. "It's also interest if we put it on a card." She pointed her wine glass at me. "Not everything is a spreadsheet, Lucas." "This one is," I said. "It's literally numbers." We didn't go. She went quiet about it after a week or so. I thought it had blown over. 2 months later, there was a $1,900 charge on that hidden card to a travel company I didn't recognize. Chicago, 3 nights, boutique hotel, brand building retreat, according to the merchant category. I would only see that when I went back through the statements later. At the time, all I knew was that she asked if I minded if she went to a work conference, mostly comped, just a little out of pocket for meals and such. "You know conferences," she said, kissing my cheek. "Boring panels, no fun, you won't be missing out." I believed her, or I convinced myself I did. Trust is like that sometimes. It's not actually that you don't see what's in front of you. It's that you decide to interpret it in the most generous possible way because the alternative means rethinking your whole life. The day I found the statement, we were supposed to have salmon for dinner. I'd bought it the day before. It was sitting in the fridge marinating in lemon and herbs. I like routines. Monday fish, Tuesday pasta, that kind of quiet structure. It calms me. Jenna texted at 4. Running late, big client presentation. Don't wait to eat if you get hungry. I put the salmon in the oven at 6, ate at the table alone at 6:30, and wrapped her portion up for later. At 7:15 she came in, heels clicking, talking before she even dropped her purse. "Oh my God, they loved it," she said, breathless. "The new branding, the whole pitch. Sandra said I knocked it out of the park. We might land the whole luxury division." She kicked her shoes off by the door, dug into her bag for her phone, and started scrolling. "Congratulations," I said, wiping my mouth. "There's salmon in the fridge." "Is it dry?" she asked, wrinkling her nose. "It's fine." "I'm not that hungry," she said. "We had apps after, the client insisted, bottle service." "On whose card?" I asked, more out of reflex than suspicion. She waved a hand. "Corporate, relax. God, you have PTSD from Applebee's in high school or something." I watched her for a second. Hair perfect, makeup still intact, blouse crisp. She did look the part, polished, expensive. The image she wanted to present to those luxury clients. "How was your day?" she asked, half looking at me, half at her phone. "Pretty standard," I said. "Quarterly numbers, nothing exciting, which is how I like it." "There he is, Mr. Boring," she teased. I smiled thinly. "Boring pays the bills." "You make enough money," she said absently, thumbs moving. "We're fine." That line hit differently, with the statement images open on my phone in my pocket. I waited. We watched an episode of something forgettable on Netflix. She scrolled through her feed and showed me photos of a friend's renovated bathroom. "See, this is what I'm talking about. We could do something like this. Our tile is so," she made a face. "Functional," I supplied. "Ugly," she said. "We live like we're waiting for our real life to start." I thought about the compound interest charts I'd built. "Our real life is starting when we're not in debt," I said. "That's the life I care about." She sighed dramatically. "You always go there. You just love to be the responsible one." I let the conversation drift off. The timing didn't feel right. I wanted her fed and calmer. I wanted my own head quiet. At 9:30, she went to take off her makeup. I heard the water run, the cabinet doors open and close. When she came back out in leggings and a t-shirt barefaced, I muted the TV. "Hey," I said, "can we talk money for a minute?" She groaned. "Right now I just scrubbed my face, can we not?" "It's important," I said. She flopped onto the couch. "Fine, budget sermon, go." I pulled my phone out, opened the photos, and handed it to her. Her expression went from bored to blank in a second. She stared at the screen, swiped, swiped again. Her fingers slowed. The muscle in her jaw ticked once. "Where did you get this?" she asked finally, voice too even. "In your blue coat," I said. "You left the statement in the pocket." "That's private," she said. "It's debt," I said. "In our house, it's not private." Her eyes flashed. "It's in my name." "Correct," I said. "It's also in this marriage. That makes it my business." She tossed the phone onto the cushion between us like it burned. "You went through my stuff." "I was putting winter coats away," I said. "It was in the pocket. I didn't go through a diary. I found a bill, a large one." "You could have given it to me," she said. "You didn't have to snoop." "I'm not sure you get to lead with the word snoop when you've opened a secret credit card for $20,000, I said calmly. "Different scale." She crossed her arms. "It's not secret, it's just mine." "Opened 10 months ago," I said. "Maxed out as of 2 days ago. Minimum payment past due. That's not just mine. That's a problem." She picked the phone back up, looked at the number again like it might magically change. It's not as bad as it looks," she said finally. "I've been making the payments. I just missed one because work's been crazy. I'll catch up." "With what?" I asked. Your salary covers your car, your student loan refinancing, your fun money. We both know that. Where exactly is 600 a month for minimums coming from? Minimums that will never actually touch the principal. You make enough, she said, and there it was. Just pay it off, don't be stingy. Something in my chest went very still. Stingy, I repeated. She rolled her eyes. Yes, God, Lucas, it's money. You act like I gambled away our entire future. It's an investment in my image. You know what I do? I literally sell luxury. I have to look the part. These are work expenses. Work expenses go on corporate cards, I said. Or they get reimbursed. These are spa days, clothes, a trip you called a conference that we both know was a girls' weekend with a guest speaker. That's so unfair, she shot back. You don't understand my industry. Appearance matters. Relationships matter. These clients expect a certain vibe. I can't show up looking like, she gestured in my general direction, like you do. I looked down at my button-down and chinos. They were clean, unremarkable, like someone who isn't in 5 figures of high-interest debt, I suggested. You're being dramatic, she said. It's not like I bought a yacht. It's 20 grand. You could write a check tomorrow and we'd never feel it. We would absolutely feel it, I said. In our retirement timeline, in our emergency cushion, in the fact that we agreed multiple times to not carry balances. You and your agreements, she said sarcastically. You make everything sound like a contract. Money is literally contracts, I said. Also, marriage is a contract. We sat with Ray in that classroom and said we wouldn't do this. We don't hide debt. I didn't hide it, she said weakly. I just didn't bring it up yet. Until when? I asked. When the calls started, when your credit score tanked and mine with it, when you needed a bailout. Stop, she snapped. You're acting like I'm some kind of child. I'm handling it. I just had a rough couple of months. Rough months don't show up as a maxed out card in 10 months, I said. They show up as maybe a small balance. This is a pattern. She grabbed the statement back from my phone screen, eyes flicking down it defensively. You're not seeing it right, she said. Look, these are for client events, dinners, hotel. I put deposits down, then I get reimbursed. Show me the reimbursements, I said, in our accounts. She hesitated, just for a second, that was enough. They come to my individual account, she said finally. I've been using them to pay other things. It's a juggle, you don't get it. What I get, I said slowly, is that you opened a card in secret, lied about trips being comped, and have been juggling minimums like a teenager, hoping future you or future me would figure it out. You're punishing me for trying to keep up, she said, eyes shining. You have no idea what it's like. All my friends have better houses, better clothes. Their husbands don't nitpick every purchase. I'm not punishing you, I said. Wrong word, I'm protecting us or trying to. There's a difference. You always talk about us, she said bitterly, except it's always about you being comfortable. I took a breath, slow. I could feel the urge to argue building, to rebut every point, drag out spreadsheets, lecture about interest rates. Instead, I let it go. Here's how this works from now on, I said quietly. I'm not paying this card off. I am not adding your secret debt to our joint obligations. I will not use my income, which I've saved and invested for over 20 years, to erase a problem you created behind my back. Her mouth fell open. So what, you're just going to watch me drown? I'm not watching you drown, I said. I'm offering you a life raft that looks like a budget and a cut-up card. You can climb on or you can keep swimming in circles, but I'm not jumping in with you. That's cold, she said. You're my husband. I match temperature, I said. You hid $20,000 in debt from me and called me stingy. That's not exactly warm. She stared at me, breathing hard. So what, you're just going to let my credit go to hell? Yours will too. We're married. We're tied together whether you like it or not. Not as much as you think, I said. I checked. I'm not on that card. It's your name, your social. But you're right about one thing: as long as we're married, there's a risk it can splash on me, which is why things are going to change. Oh, so we're threatening divorce now, she said loudly. Over a credit card, do you hear yourself? I didn't say divorce, I said. You did. She threw the statement down on the coffee table and stood up. I can't talk to you when you're like this. Like what? I asked, calm. Sanctimonious, she said. Judgy, acting like you're perfect. I never said I was perfect, I said. I said this is unacceptable. That's different. She marched down the hall and slammed the bedroom door. I sat there on the couch for a while, staring at the card logo on the paper, at the number that had a shape in my brain. Years of life traded for handbags and dinners, and the feeling of not being left behind. I wasn't angry. Anger is hot and loud. I was something else, colder, final. That was the first time I let myself think, if she doesn't change, I might have to leave. Up until then, leaving had been an abstract concept, like an insurance policy you never expect to use. After that night, it moved into the possible futures column in my head. I slept in the guest room. She didn't come in. In the morning, she was all business. Tight smile, no warmth. I'll handle it, she said, pouring coffee. You can get off your high horse now. How? I asked. I'll figure it out, she snapped. You don't have to know every detail of my life. That's the thing, I said quietly. I kind of do. That's marriage. She grabbed her keys. I don't have time for this. At work that day, I did my job, ran my numbers, sent my emails. In between tasks, I opened a new checking account in my name, only at a different bank, and scheduled my paycheck to start going there for the next pay period. I set up automatic transfers from that account to our existing joint checking for exactly my half of the mortgage, utilities, and agreed-upon shared expenses. No more, no less. I called a financial planner I trusted, an old colleague who'd gone independent, and booked a meeting for the following week. Then I stared at his number for a long time and decided that wasn't enough. At 3:30, I closed my office door and dialed a different kind of professional. Family law, this is Martin and Kellogg, a receptionist answered. I need to schedule a consultation, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. About protecting myself financially in a marriage, possibly about next steps if things don't improve. They put me with an attorney named Melissa Carter. We set an appointment for the next Tuesday. Bring all your financial statements, she said. Any documentation of debts, especially those you didn't know about. We'll go from there. When I hung up, I stared at my reflection in my dark computer screen. Same face, same office. The ground under my life had tilted a few degrees, that was all. You can pretend not to notice for a while, but if you ignore it long enough, you slide. I told Ray over lunch the next day. We were at a small diner near the plant, the kind of place with bottomless coffee and laminated menus. He listened without interrupting as I laid it out, the card, the number, the investment in her image line. He whistled softly. That's not a target run, he said. No, I agreed, it's not. What are you going to do? He asked. I already opened a separate account, I said. Paycheck's moving. Meeting with a lawyer next week. He nodded slowly. You sure you're not jumping the gun? I'm not filing anything tomorrow, I said. I'm getting information. I've spent our whole marriage making sure we were insulated from dumb financial decisions. Turns out the biggest risk was inside the house. That's harsh, he said, but there was no judgment in it, just observation. It's accurate, I replied. Look, I'm not trying to crucify her. I get that she feels pressure. Her job, her friends, Instagram. But hiding it, expecting me to just write a check, I shook my head. That was the line. He stirred his coffee. Tash spends, he said. You know that clothes, house stuff, but she tells me, we talk, we argue sometimes, then we agree. I can't imagine her hiding 20 grand. Yeah, I said. That's the part that's sticking in my throat. He looked at me for a long second. You okay? I'm clear, I said. I don't know if I'm okay yet, but I know what I won't do. I won't set myself on fire to keep our lifestyle warm. He raised an eyebrow. That's dramatic for you. Clarity sounds dramatic if you're used to confusion, I said. He chuckled. You've been reading those quote Instagram things Jenna posts. Unfortunately, yes, I said. Some of them actually stick. He sobered again. Whatever you end up doing, man, just don't drag it out because you're afraid of being the bad guy. You're not. You set the rules up front. She walked around them. I know, I said. That's the thing. Choices have invoices. She just didn't expect the bill to show up this soon. Melissa's office was in a low brick building downtown. Nothing fancy. Diplomas on the wall, shelves of thick binders, a plant that looked real rather than an Instagram prop. She shook my hand firmly. Tell me what's going on, she said. I told her. She listened without much expression, occasionally jotting notes. Is she on any of your other accounts? She asked when I finished. Yes, I said. 2 joint credit cards, the mortgage, the joint checking. We each have individual checking for fun money. I have retirement accounts from before we married. How long have you been married? She asked. 8 years, I said. She nodded. Okay, so, I'm not giving you formal legal advice until we sign an agreement, but generally speaking, here in Ohio, debts incurred during the marriage are potentially marital, even if in one person's name, especially if they supported the marital lifestyle. She must have seen something in my face, because she held up a hand. However, she continued, judges also look at whether the debt was incurred for a legitimate joint purpose or for something one party did in bad faith. Hiding a card, lying about it, that could be persuasive. The fact that you didn't know about it matters. The fact that you've been the one focusing on savings and paying off debt also matters. So I might still be on the hook, I said. Possibly, she said, or at least partially. It depends. That's why documenting the deception is important. Text that statement, your bank records showing no reimbursements deposited. It all helps paint a picture. I'm not looking to screw her, I said quickly. I just don't want to blow up 20 years of discipline because she wants to play rich on Instagram. I get that, Melissa said. Here's what I usually tell people in your position. Separate your finances as much as you can within the marriage now. Stop using joint credit for anything except true joint necessities. Limit how much you keep in joint checking, enough to cover shared bills, no more. Protect your retirement accounts. Don't liquidate anything for the marriage without a court order. And if you decide to file, we'll make a case that this card is her separate debt. How often does that work? I asked. Often enough, she said. Judges don't like secrecy. They really don't like it when one spouse undermines the financial stability the other worked for. What about the house? I asked. That's joint, she said. Equity will be split. If you're the one keeping it, you might be asked to take more of the joint debt to even things out. If nobody keeps it, you sell and split. I pictured our kitchen table, the backyard where Jenna had hosted wine nights under the string lights, the garage with my tools lined up on pegboard, the house I'd thought we'd retire in, debt-free at 55. Do you want the house? She asked, watching me. For the first time, my honest answer was yes. I want peace, I said, wherever that ends up being. She smiled faintly. That's a good North Star, keeps the negotiations cleaner. We went over options. Legal separation, divorce, postnuptial agreements. Each path had its own paperwork, its own emotional price tag. Look, she said finally, leaning back. You don't have to decide today. You're here getting information, that's good. But I'll tell you what I tell everyone. Hope is not a financial plan. If she keeps spending and you keep covering, nothing changes. The second you redraw the map and enforce it, you'll see who she really is in this arena. And if who she is doesn't work with who I am, I said, then we talk again, she said, and we make a clean exit. On the drive home, I thought about the phrase clean exit. I'd always associated divorce with screaming matches, broken plates, dramatic scenes. But that wasn't me. It wasn't even Jenna, not really. She liked her drama staged and filtered, not messy in the kitchen. Could you end a marriage like you close out a checking account? Calmly, with signatures and forwarding addresses. It sounded cold. It also sounded possible. At home that night, I sat Jenna down again. "Did you pay the minimum on that card?" I asked. She was on the couch scrolling. "I told you I would handle it." "Did you?" I repeated. She rolled her eyes. "Why do you have to double-check me?" "Because the due date was 2 days ago," I said. "And because last time we talked, handling it involved hoping I'd pay it." She huffed. "Fine, no, I didn't yet. I'll do it first thing tomorrow, happy." "No," I said. "I'm not happy, but here's where we are. Starting next pay period, my paycheck is going to a separate account. I'll transfer my share of the house bills to our joint checking. I won't be adding extra just in case. If you want to keep spending like this, you do it with your money on your cards. You don't use mine as a backstop." "You're cutting me off," she said slowly. "I'm setting a boundary," I said. Wrong word again. "That's the same thing," she said. "No," I said. "Cutting you off would be emptying the joint account and disappearing. I'm not doing that. I'm still paying my share of our agreed expenses. I'm just not funding your secret debt." She stared at me, nostrils flaring. "Do you even hear yourself? My share, your share. We're married. It's supposed to be our money." "Our money," I said, "was supposed to come with our decisions. Joint. No secrets. You changed those rules. I'm updating my response." "You're punishing me," she said again, voice rising. "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself. You keep using that word. It doesn't fit." She laughed, short and bitter. "You're unbelievable." "Then leave," I said simply. The words were out before I'd really decided to say them. They hung in the air between us. Her eyes widened. "What?" "If you want a life where you can spend without questions, take on debt without conversations, where someone just writes checks when you get in over your head, I'm not that guy," I said. "If you need that to be happy, then you should go find it." She didn't say anything. "You told me once you didn't want to be left behind," I continued. "What I'm hearing now is that you don't actually want to be with me if it means saying no to some things. That's useful data. I'm listening." "That's not what I said," she whispered. "It's what you meant," I said gently. "You want the version of me who paid off your loans, who smiled and nodded while you bought $300 dresses because they were on sale. You don't want the part of me that says, 'This has to stop.' Unfortunately for you, it's a package deal." Tears filled her eyes. For a second I saw the woman I'd married, funny, bright, the one who used to make jokes about us being old and gray, walking on a beach somewhere. "I just want to feel like I'm not nothing," she said quietly. "All my friends, they have these lives, these houses, these trips. I look at us and it's like we're stuck." "We're not stuck," I said. "We're secure. There's a difference. You're comparing our backstage to their highlight reels. That's a losing game." "You don't get it," she said. "You're a guy. Nobody looks at you and measures you by your bag or your shoes." "You're right," I said. "I don't get that exact pressure, but I do get being measured by what you provide. That's part of this too. I've been carrying the mental load of our future for years. It's heavy. It would be nice if you helped instead of adding weight in the dark." She sniffed, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "So what now?" she asked. "You going to file for divorce because I opened a card?" "Not today," I said. "But I did talk to a lawyer. I know what my options are. I know how to keep this from wrecking me if it all goes sideways. I'd prefer to fix it together. But I'm not afraid to walk if you keep ignoring reality." "You talked to a lawyer before you talked to me," she demanded. "I've been talking to you about money for 8 years," I said. "I'm catching up with myself." She didn't have an answer for that. For a while it looked like she might actually change. She cut up the physical card in front of me the next night, Took a photo of it on the cutting board minus the Instagram filter. "See," she said. "Happy now?" I wasn't, but I nodded. "That's a start." She made a payment, $800 from her checking account. I saw it on the statement the next month. The balance dropped to 19 and change. She cooked twice that week. Nothing fancy, but it was more than usual. Chicken, a salad. "Trying to save money," she said lightly. "I can be responsible." We had a quiet couple of weeks. No big packages showed up on the porch. No boutique bags appeared in the closet. I let my guard down a little. Then, 3 Fridays later, I got an alert from the credit monitoring app I'd set up after meeting with Melissa. New account activity. Balance increased significantly. I logged in, heart already knowing. She'd done a balance transfer to a new card with a 0% intro rate. The old card was technically at 0. The debt had just moved houses. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes when you realize someone took your olive branch and used it as kindling. We were at Ray and Tasha's that night for another barbecue. Same deck, same string lights, different pressure under my ribs. Jenna was in rare form, laughing loud, holding court with stories about her clients and their drama. She looked good. She always did. That's part of how she got here. At one point, as everyone was refilling plates, the conversation drifted, as it always seems to do with people in their 30s and 40s, to money. "We're thinking about redoing the kitchen next year," Tasha said. "Nothing crazy, just new counters, maybe an island." "Please do marble," Jenna said instantly. "Quartz is fine, but marble just photographs so much better. You won't regret it." Ray snorted. "We'll see. I've got a marble budget and a laminate soul." Everyone laughed. Jenna turned to me, smirking. "Lucas here would have us all living in cinderblock houses if he had his way," she said. "He did the math on my throw pillows once." "That was one time," I said, "and it was napkins, not pillows." "He tracks every cent," she continued, rolling her eyes. "Sometimes he'll look at my statement and go, 'Oh, you spent $24.18 at Target on Thursday. What was that?' It's like being audited by your own husband." I felt the familiar flush of embarrassment. I smiled thinly. "I track patterns," I said. "You leave your statements around, I see them. Cost of living with an analyst." "Cost of living with a control freak," she corrected. People chuckled. "Easy," Ray said, giving me a sideways look. Something in me, already frayed from the new balance transfer notification, snapped, not in a yelling way, in a clarity way. "You know what I don't track," I said, my voice light but edged. "Secret cards with 20 grand on them. Those are just special surprises." The table went quiet. The only sound was the neighbor's dog barking 2 yards over. Jenna's head snapped around. "What are you doing?" she hissed under her breath. "Answering the question," I said. "You brought up audits." Ray's eyes flicked between us. Tasha cleared her throat. "Maybe we should." "No, it's fine," Jenna said quickly, the fake smile plastered back on. "Lucas is just mad because I opened a card in my name and he thinks he gets veto power on everything I do." "Not everything," I said. "Just the 5-figure debts that live in the same house as my retirement. Minor stuff." "You're being dramatic," she said through clenched teeth. "Knew that was coming," I said. "Take a shot, everyone." Jenna called me dramatic. Ray gave me a look that said, "Are you sure?" I took a breath. "We can table this," I said, standing up. "Sorry, guys, that was not fair to drop at your barbecue." "No, I'm sorry," Jenna said loudly, standing too. "My husband can't stand the idea that I might have agency over my own finances." Tasha stood too, hands up. "How about we don't do this here," she said. "Food's getting cold, we can." "We're leaving," I said quietly to Ray and Tasha. "Thanks for dinner, we'll text." "Lucas," Jenna started. "Keys," I said, holding my hand out. She dropped them into my palm, eyes blazing. I thanked our hosts again, hugged Tasha, clapped Ray on the shoulder. Then I walked to the car without looking back to see if Jenna was following. She was. We were barely out of their subdivision when she exploded. "What was that?" she demanded. "You humiliated me in front of our friends." "I answered a question you started," I said calmly. "You joked about me being an auditor. I made a light comment about a real situation. If you feel humiliated, maybe it's not the joke. Maybe it's the behavior." "You had no right," she said. "That's private." Again with the word private, I said. "It's fascinating. You want a joint lifestyle with private debt. That's not how this works." She folded her arms, staring straight ahead. "I can't believe you. You're such a child sometimes." I almost laughed. "You opened another card," I said instead, "didn't you?" She didn't respond. "Balance transfer," I said. 0% intro rate, 12 months. You moved the debt and called it solved. That's the juggle you mentioned to the lawyer." Her head whipped around. "You talked to a lawyer about me moving a balance." "I talked to a lawyer about you hiding debt," I said. "The balance transfer was a bonus track." "You're unbelievable," she said again. "You have our entire life under a microscope. Normal couples don't live like this." "Normal couples don't hide 20,000 in revolving debt from each other," I said. "So I guess we're both off the average." I turned onto our street. The houses looked the same. Vinyl siding, manicured lawns. Somewhere in one of them, a couple was arguing about something small like whose turn it was to take out the trash. I envied them for a second. "Here's what's going to happen," I said as I pulled into our driveway. "Tomorrow, you're calling both card companies. You're closing the accounts to new charges. You're setting up an automatic payment plan that actually pays them down, not just minimums. You're bringing me the numbers so we can see how long it will take. That's the only way I stay in this." She laughed, disbelieving. "You're giving me ultimatums now." "I'm giving you a boundary," I said. "Ultimatum is do this or else. Boundary is if you do this, here's what I will do. I'm telling you clearly, keep hiding debt, keep juggling, and I will file. Not a threat, a timeline." "You wouldn't," she scoffed. "I would," I said. "I've already got the lawyer. I already know how it works. 10 more months of this, that balance will be 28 grand. I'm not going to wake up at 50 with a house full of interest and resentment." "You care more about money than you do about me," she said, voice shaking. I put the car in park, turned to face her. "No," I said quietly. "I care about whether my partner tells me the truth. Money is just the scoreboard this time. If you'd come to me a year ago and said, 'I'm feeling pressure, I want to look the part, this is what it costs, can we work it into the plan?' we might be in a different conversation. You chose secrets instead." She looked at me, eyes full. "So that's it, one mistake and you're done." "Jenna," I said, "this isn't one mistake. This is a 10-month series, and I'm not done yet. I'm giving you one last chance to be honest and work with me. Don't act like I'm walking out over a dress." She slammed the door and went inside without answering. I sat in the car for a minute, watching the porch light flicker on. Our house stared back at me, neutral. It didn't care who lived in it. It would happily shelter whoever paid the mortgage. Inside, she'd probably call one of her friends, tell them I was being controlling, cheap, cruel. They'd tell her she deserved nice things, that men were replaceable, that she shouldn't let anybody tell her what to do. I wondered if any of them would offer to pay the minimums. That night, I didn't bring it up again. I watched some forgettable show in the guest room, let the static wash my brain clean enough to sleep. In the morning, there was a note on the kitchen counter. "I'll handle it. Stop threatening divorce every time we argue." Underneath, a post-it with a heart. J. I stared at it. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the card accounts. The old one showed a zero balance. The new one, $19,600, $0% interest until next March. She had handled it in exactly the way that made her feel better and me more nervous. Something very simple clicked. Not a shout, not a wound, a switch. I brewed my coffee, drank it slowly at the table. Then I took out a yellow legal pad and drew 2 columns. Left side my assets, right side joint messy. On the left, 401k, Roth IRA, individual brokerage, new checking, my car title. On the right, house, joint checking, joint cards, Jenna. I circled the right column. If I wanted peace, I had to separate the columns. At lunch, I called Melissa. "I'm ready," I said. "Okay," she replied, no surprise in her voice. "File for divorce or legal separation first." "Divorce," I said. The word didn't stick in my throat like I'd expected. It slid out clean. "If we're doing this, I want clear lines and a clean break." "We'll need updated financials," she said, "and we'll need to talk strategy about the house and that debt." "I'm prepared to sell the house," I said. The word surprised me more than divorce had. "Split the equity, walk away. I don't want to keep something that's going to be a battleground." "Selling makes the division easier," she said. "We'll push for the secret card to be classified as her separate debt. Given the deception, we've got an argument. You may have to take a little more of the joint stuff to balance, but it'll be manageable." "That's fine," I said. "I can handle manageable. I can't handle invisible minds." We set another meeting. I hung up, sat in my car outside the diner where my coworkers were finishing their burgers. I watched an older couple walk out, the man holding the door for the woman, her hand resting lightly on his back. I wondered how many conversations like this one they'd had, decades ago. How many decisions, how many quiet boundaries, had added up to them still walking out of diners together at 70. Then I thought about Jenna's line, "You make enough, just pay it off," and knew we were done. I told her that night. She was at the counter, laptop open, editing a social media calendar or some other brightly colored grid of other people's lives. "We need to talk," I said. "If this is about the cards again, I swear," she started. "It's about us," I said. She closed the laptop slowly. "Okay," she said cautiously. "What now?" "I filed for divorce today," I said. Maybe there are gentler ways to say it. Softer lead-ins, more couching. But I'd spent months, years, softening everything. Clarity felt like mercy, even if it landed like a slap. Her face went through 3 expressions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, then something like horror. "You're joking," she said. "I'm not," I said. "The papers will be served in a day or 2. You'll have time to respond. We'll work out logistics like adults." She stared at me like I'd grown another head. "Over a credit card." "Over what the credit card represents," I said. "Lying, secrecy, a fundamental mismatch in how we think about money and responsibility. Over you looking me in the face and saying, 'You make enough, just pay it off,' like I'm an ATM with feelings you can ignore." Her eyes filled. "People work through worse," she said. "Affairs, addictions." "Debt is an addiction for some people," I said. "I'd put secret 5-figure spending in the same category as cheating at this point. It's a betrayal of trust, and if I stay, I'm costing it. I won't." "You're throwing away 8 years," she whispered. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said. "I'm acknowledging that the foundation is cracked. We can slap granite on top and stage it for Instagram, but the structure's still unsound." "This is about you wanting to retire early," she said bitterly. "You care more about your stupid cabin fantasy than our marriage." "That cabin fantasy is about not having to work until I drop," I said. "It's about not being 70 and still paying MasterCard because you needed to feel included at 35. I care about a partner who understands that. You don't." She stood up so fast her chair scraped. "So that's it. You just decided without me." "I decided about me," I said. "I can't decide for you. You get to decide how you respond. Fight it, sign it, drag it out. That's on you. But I'm done debating whether my boundaries are reasonable. I'm not asking permission." "You're going to regret this," she said, voice low. "Nobody is going to want to deal with your rules, with your spreadsheets." "Maybe," I said. "I'd rather be alone in a cabin with my spreadsheets than spending my 50s digging out of holes I didn't dig. That's a trade I can live with." She laughed once harshly. "So what now? You kick me out, change the locks?" "No," I said. "Not yet. This is still your house as much as mine until the court says otherwise. But I am calling a realtor tomorrow. We're putting the house on the market. We'll split the equity, settle the debts the court assigns, and move on." "You can't just decide to sell my house," she said. "Our house," I corrected. "And yes, I can start the process. The court will likely agree. Neither of us can afford to buy the other out without wrecking our finances. This is the cleanest option." "I'm not leaving," she said stubbornly. "You don't have to right now," I said. "We'll agree on a timeline. I can move into a short-term rental until it sells if that makes it easier. I'm not trying to make you homeless, Jenna. I'm trying to stop living in a home that feels like a liability." She sank back into her chair, suddenly deflated. "I don't understand how you can be so calm," she said. "Don't you care at all?" "I care a lot," I said. "That's why I'm calm. Anger would mean I still thought yelling could change anything. I'm past that. This is logistics now." She stared at me for a long time, like she was trying to find the old version of me behind my eyes, the one who shrugged and picked up the check without saying anything. "He would have just paid it," she said quietly. "The man I married." "The man you married paid off your student loans and helped you cut up your first card," I said. "He thought you were on the same page. The man standing here knows better." She didn't say anything else. The next few weeks were a study in contrast. On one side, paperwork, phone calls, meetings. Realtor walking through the house with a tablet making notes about staging. Photographer scheduling a shoot time. Melissa emailing draft settlement proposals. On the other side, Jenna cycling through the stages Melissa had warned me about. First came denial. She acted like it was a bluff, asked if I'd talked to a therapist yet, left self-help books on money scripts on the coffee table as if the problem could be solved by me unpacking my childhood. Then anger, slammed cabinets, snapped at me over dishes, called me selfish, cheap, unloving, sent long texts about how her father had always called her too expensive and how I was doing the same thing. I read them once each. I didn't respond to most. Then bargaining. She sat down one night with a legal pad of her own. "I made a plan," she said. "I'll pick up a side gig, social media consulting for small businesses. I'll bring in an extra $1,000 a month and I'll put it all toward the cards. We don't have to sell the house. We can do this." "That's a good plan," I said. "For you, you should do that regardless, but I'm still selling the house. We're still getting divorced." She blinked. "Even if I fix it?" "Debt isn't the only thing broken here," I said. "You fixing the numbers now doesn't undo the patterns. I appreciate the effort. I really do. But I'm not going to stay married out of gratitude that you finally started doing the bare minimum." Her face crumpled. "You are so cruel," she whispered. "I'm clear," I said. "It sounds cruel if you're used to me cushioning everything. I'm done cushioning." When the house hit the market, the photos looked like the life she'd always wanted. Sunlight through the kitchen window, tastefully arranged throw pillows, a vase of fresh flowers on the island. Our realtor, a brisk woman named Karen, sent us the listing link. "Should get a lot of interest," she said. "It's a hot market for this neighborhood. Expect multiple offers." "Of course it is," Jenna muttered. We had 12 showings in the first weekend. I took my laptop to a coffee shop during them, answered emails, pretended not to wonder who would sleep in my bedroom next. On the second day we got 3 offers, all over asking. Cash buyers, investors, young couples. The sponders, a couple my age with no kids, wrote a letter about loving the yard, imagining their dog running around, hosting dinners in the dining room. We accepted theirs. 30-day close if inspection goes smoothly, Karen said. You'll both need to be packed up and out by then unless we negotiate a rent back. I'll be out before then, I said. Jenna said nothing. I found a furnished apartment month to month a few blocks from my office. It was small, bland, but clean. A bed, a couch, a little table. It felt like a hotel room you stayed in for a conference. Not home, but not terrible. The night before I left the house for the last time as a resident, I walked through each room. Our bedroom, with the indent in the carpet where my dresser had been. The closet where I'd found the coat. The guest room that had never become a nursery. The kitchen where we'd had 100 small arguments and a handful of good dinners. I paused in front of the hall closet, opened it. The blue coat was gone. Jenna had moved out her things in stages too. She'd be staying with a friend until she figured out her next step. On the shelf above the hanging rod, a single envelope sat by itself. Bank logo. I pulled it down. New statement. Balance, $21,302. $0% intro rate ending in 3 months. I smiled, small and sad. Then I set it back on the shelf and walked away. At closing, we sat across from each other at a long conference table, a stack of documents between us. Lawyers, realtor, title rep, pens clicking. The numbers were boring, which was a relief. Sale price, minus remaining mortgage minus fees, left about $180,000 in equity, split down the middle. Each of us walked away with roughly 90 grand before we talked debts. Melissa had argued strongly that the secret card and its transferred cousin should be Jenna's alone. The other side had tried to lump it into marital debts, citing dinners, trips, maintaining an image that benefited the couple. The judge, a tired woman about my mother's age, had looked at Jenna over her glasses. You opened these accounts without telling your husband, she said. You lied about the nature of the charges. You hid the statements. That doesn't sound like joint decision-making to me. Jenna had stared at her lap. In equitable distribution, we look at fairness, not just 50-50, the judge continued. It is not fair to saddle Mr. Pierce with debts he had no knowledge of and did not benefit from, beyond arguably some clothes and spa treatments. These are your responsibility, Ms. Pierce. That was that. At the closing table, the settlement reflected it. Jenna's $90,000 got reduced by the outstanding balances on her cards, plus a small personal loan she'd taken out to consolidate another batch of smaller debts I hadn't known about. She still walked away with something, just less. My $90,000 stayed intact. Aside from a couple of small joint items we'd agreed I'd clean up because they were in my name. When it was over, we walked out into the parking lot together, the late summer heat pressing down. She lit a cigarette. I didn't even know she smoked. Picked it up from a client, she said when she saw my look. Don't start. I wasn't going to, I said. We stood there in silence for a minute, watching Karen drive off with her commission check. So, Jenna said finally, you're really going to do it. I already did it, I said. We both did, that's what those signatures were. You know what I mean, she said. The cabin, the early retirement, the whole hermit plan. It's not a hermit plan, I said. There's Wi-Fi. She almost smiled. You're such a dork. Accurate, I said. Where is it again, she asked. This mythical cabin. About 2 hours south, I said, near a lake. A friend of Melissa's had a place they were looking to sell without putting it on the market. Small, nothing fancy. Wraparound porch. Some trees. I'm closing in a month. You really had this all lined up, she said. I made a plan, I said. It's what I do when things fall apart. She took a drag, exhaled. I'm filing for bankruptcy, she said abruptly. I turned to look at her. Chapter 7, I asked automatically. She snorted. Of course you know the chapter numbers. I read, I said. Yeah, she said. 7. Melissa's counterpart said it's my best shot. Wipe it clean, start over. My credit will be trash for a while, but whatever. Maybe I'll finally learn. I hope you do, I said, and I meant it. She looked at me, smoke curling around her face. You're not going to gloat. No, I said. I'm sad it came to that, but I'm glad I'm not coming with you into it. She nodded slowly. You really did love me, she said, almost to herself, in your own spreadsheet way. I still care about you, I said. I always will in some form. I just can't be married to someone whose idea of love includes financial Russian roulette. She flicked ash onto the asphalt. I thought you'd be more emotional, she said. Scream, cry, something. I did all that in my head months ago, I said. Now it's just quiet. Quiet feels like indifference, she said. Quiet feels like peace, I said. Peace isn't dramatic, it's just the absence of stupid. She barked a short laugh. Put that on a mug. I might, I said. Cabin needs dishes. We stood there for another moment. I hope you get what you're looking for, she said finally, in your trees and your early bird dinners. I hope you do too, I said, whatever that ends up being. She dropped the cigarette, ground it out with her heel, and walked away without looking back. 3 months later, I sat on the porch of my cabin with a mug of coffee and a spreadsheet open on my laptop. The lake lay still in front of me, a sheet of pewter under a sky just starting to think about fall. The cabin was small, 1 bedroom, a loft I'd turned into an office, a living area with a wood stove. The kitchen had laminate countertops, not marble. The tile was outdated. The deck needed staining. It was the nicest place I'd ever lived. My expenses had dropped by half. No more big mortgage, no more discretionary keeping up. My income, for now, was the same. I'd stayed at my job, moving to a hybrid arrangement that let me work from the cabin 3 days a week. The reduction in noise, both literal and emotional, had done more for my blood pressure than any medication could have. I reran the retirement projections for the 100th time. With the equity from the house, my existing savings, and my lower cost of living, I could feasibly stop full-time work at 55. Maybe earlier if I wanted to tighten the belt more. I didn't, but it was nice to know I could. Peace of mind is hard to put a price on, but I saw it in those numbers. On my phone, there was a single unread text from a mutual friend. Did you hear about Jenna? I'd opened it, heart doing a small, uncomfortable skip and read the update. She defiled the bankruptcy petition. The student loan refinancing she'd done in her own name stayed. Those are hard to discharge, but the cards, the personal loan, the overdraft fees, all of that would be wiped. She had to give up the leased BMW, was driving an older Corolla now. She moved into a smaller apartment across town. Her Instagram had gone quieter, more quote graphics, fewer shopping hauls. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired for her, but also strangely relieved. She'd hit bottom in a way the old version of me would have tried to cushion. Now she had a chance to actually rebuild. I typed back, I hope she's okay. And I did, from a distance that finally felt healthy. Hard to break old habits, Ray had said when he visited the cabin for the first time. We sat on the porch, beers in hand, watching his kids throw rocks into the water. Habits are harder than divorce lawyers, I'd replied, but at least habits don't bill by the hour. He'd laughed, then gone quiet. You did the right thing, he'd said after a while. Doesn't make it easy, but it's right. I know, I'd said. That's the weird part, how something can be this painful and still feel like the only sane option. Now, months later, the pain was less sharp, more like an ache that flared up when I drove past neighborhoods like our old one or saw a couple our age arguing in the grocery store. I answered it by reminding myself of the line I'd drawn, by remembering the coat, the statement, the way she'd said, "You make enough, just pay it off," like we were talking about picking up an extra bottle of wine, not rewriting our future. I had my own little rituals now. morning coffee on the porch, a walk down to the dock at lunch, chopping wood on Saturdays, dinner with neighbors once a week, a retired teacher and his wife who'd moved up here 10 years ago for the same reason I had, quiet. Sometimes I'd drive into town and sit at the small diner there, the lake version of the one by my old job. People would ask what brought me up. Needed to simplify, I'd say. Choices have invoices. I was tired of paying for someone else's. I rarely mentioned the divorce unless it was relevant. My story was man whose wife ruined him financially. It was man who learned his limits and honored them. Every so often, I'd get a friend request from someone Jenna knew or a message from a former mutual acquaintance. Saw your ex posted some wild stuff. You okay? I was more than okay most days. I kept my keys on a hook by the cabin door. There were only two, one for the front door, one for the shed. No hidden cards, no mystery bills. When I checked the mail, it was boring. Utility statements, the occasional catalog, a postcard from Ray's family vacation. No ominous envelopes with urgent red lettering. Quiet isn't weak, I'd learned. It's efficient. I'd gone into marriage thinking love meant absorbing whatever came, smoothing over rough edges, making it work at any cost. I walked out understanding something simpler. Love without respect is theater. Respect without honesty is math with bad inputs. And you can't build a stable life on fiction, no matter how good it looks in photos. Sometimes on clear evenings, I'd sit on the porch and watch the sun drop behind the tree line, painting the lake gold. I'd think about the life I might have had if I'd ignored that statement in the coat. If I'd sighed, written a check, told myself it wasn't worth the fight. We'd probably still be in that house. New tile in the bathroom maybe, fresh granite, more photos, and under it all more debt, more secrets, more quiet resentment. Instead, I had squirrels in the trees, a slightly drafty bedroom, laminate countertops, and a spreadsheet that told me, with boring, beautiful clarity, that I was on track. As for Jenna, I heard things. A mutual friend mentioned she'd started a small side business helping other realtors with social media. That she talked about learning her lesson on debt, at least when it played well with her brand. That she joked about her starter husband who taught her about money the hard way. Maybe that was how she made sense of it. Everyone needs a story where they're not the villain. From where I sat, she wasn't a villain. Just someone who mistook image for substance for so long that by the time she realized the difference, the invoices were due. We all pay for what we choose eventually, in dollars, in time, in peace. I'd paid in dollars and years for things I didn't regret, education, a home, even some of the trips we'd taken together. But I wasn't going to keep paying in peace for a life that looked good from the outside and hollow inside. Sometimes a line isn't for the other person, it's for you. Drawing it and then honoring it when it became inconvenient saved my future. It cost me a marriage. It bought me a cabin, a quiet morning, a chance to grow old without the weight of someone else's secrets on my chest. Looking out at the lake, I could live with that trade.